start this meeting of the Common Council for Tuesday, February 22nd, 2022. Call the meeting to order, and I see that everyone is present. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item C is the public comment period. At this time, the council president will recognize members of the public who have indicated a desire to address the council. Upon recognition by the council president, persons may address the council, first stating their name and address. The council may act on emergency matters introduced by members of the public. Are there any members of the public who wish to address the council tonight? Anyone out there wishing to address the council? Seeing none, we'll move on to item D, approval of the minutes of the February 8th, 2022 regular meeting. Motion by Mr. Fire to approve and a second by Mr. Rosendich. Is there any discussion? Okay, the motion is to approve. Please vote.
Yes.
And that motion carries. Item E is staff updates. The first one is a presentation of APWA Supervisory Academy Certificate to Chris Hawley by Dan Connect.
Thank you and good evening. I just want to take a minute and recognize an accomplishment of Chris Hawley that he recently completed, and that is a certificate from the Wisconsin Public Works Management Institute. The Management Institute is a partnership between the Wisconsin chapter of the American Public Works Association and the University of Wisconsin-Madison. It involves 90 hours of program instruction. 54 of those are with the Public Works Supervisory Academy, as the agenda read, and the remaining are to complete the management portion of that certificate. So with that, please help me congratulate Chris with this accomplishment of the Certificate of Completion in Public Works Management Institute.
Good job, Chris. The second one is also from Mr. Connect to announce the revised date and time for the next Board of Public Works meeting.
Yes, thank you. Normally when the first of the month is on a Tuesday, we push our Board of Public Works back from the first Monday of the month to the Monday prior. I would normally have had that on the Board of Public Works agenda for them to approve a different meeting date. I forgot to do that last agenda, so I'm simply announcing the change in meeting time. The second meeting of the month would then be on March 14th, 2 weeks later. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Any questions for Dan about that? All you guys on the Public Works are aware? Okay.
Thank you.
Now we get Chris back up again. Item number 3 is to introduce a new employee, Kim Keach, Administrative Associate 3, presented by Chris Hawley, Street Superintendent. Chris.
Hello, everybody. I'm excited, elated, and happy to announce Kim Keach has joined us as our new administrative associate. She started on Valentine's Day, last Monday. She's been with us 2 weeks, and she's still with us. So Kim is joining us from Wood County, where she serves as the program assistant for planning and zoning department. She was there for 15 and a half years. She grew up in Marshfield, and she recently just moved into the city of Marshfield about a year and a half ago. She's probably pretty happy with the forecast all weekend long that she didn't have to drive 45 minutes to work. She only had to drive 5 minutes to work this morning. So with that, she also worked for Westland Insurance as a customer service agent and the Wisconsin's Rapid School District. And she holds a bachelor's degree in agricultural business from UW River Falls. You may or may not know her mother worked for 23 to 24 years with the county as the human services. So with that, please join me in welcoming Kim to the city of Marshfield.
And item number 4 is an update on the status of preparing an ordinance to allow chickens, presented by Josh Miller, Development Services Director. One more time, Josh.
Thank you. I know you guys have been waiting 6 months for this announcement.
So last August, this was discussed at the council level, and staff was directed to prepare an ordinance. Shortly thereafter, our city planner had resigned, and so we'd been short-staffed for a number of months, and it just didn't rise to the priority level like maybe it should have. But we've, and talking to Alderman Fisher, I'm sorry, he is getting, gotten some calls about it and asked what the status was. So I said, well, let me reconvene with the group, and we'd come back and give an update to the council. So I just wanted to do that. This particular ordinance does touch on a number of different sections in the municipal code, multiple sections in Chapter 18 and Chapter 9. So it's not a simple like, well, let's just adopt an ordinance, let's use a boilerplate from somewhere else, and we've got a chicken ordinance. It's a rather complex process for something pretty simple, it seems like. So we met with the development services staff, clerk staff, and police department ordinance enforcement to talk about really how we would manage this, who would take care of it, whether it would be a license or permit, and so on. And so I think we've got a pretty good draft ready to go, but we're still refining it. We're still making sure I's are dotted and T's are crossed. But we have a couple things that we're still not certain exactly how to deal with. One of the biggest issues that we've discussed is how do we handle chickens that are confiscated or as a result of whether people are in violation of the chicken ordinance or what. There's no MAPS version for chickens. So it was a question that there was a recent situation where they had confiscated a number of chickens and where they were able to take it to a local farm. But I don't know if that's something that we can count on long term. I mean, there may be a limit to how many chickens farmers want, or I don't know anything about chickens, so I don't know what the problem is. But ultimately, we can't rely on that type of setup. So if anybody has any guidance on that, that's really where our biggest hurdle is at the moment. We are going to make the ordinance we're preparing is pretty tight. It's not necessarily a free-for-all easy process to get a chicken or to have to be able to have them, but that's where you guys can come in. If you want to make it a little looser, we figured we'd make it a pretty strong ordinance, and then if you guys want to make it a little more lax, we certainly can. But that's basically the update. The other item that we'd have to address is amending the fee schedule, charging a fee for the license and a renewal fee and so on. So just really giving an update at this point. If there are questions, I'm happy to take them, or any guidance, I'm happy to take that as well. But I would imagine in the next month or two, we'll have Attorney Wolfgram review the ordinance, and then we'll be bringing it back.
Okay, I don't see anybody that's got questions for you, Josh. Thank you. Item F is the council president's comments. I have some employee recognitions today. On Friday, Deborah Carl will be with the police department for 40 years. On Saturday, Eric Jonas will be with the fire department for 15 years. On March 6th, Travis Esser will have been with the police department for 20 years. And on March 7th, Kyle Kozik will have been with the street department for 10 years. Item G is council comments. Are there any council comments? Mr. Fisher.
Thank you, Council President. I just wanted to make one brief comment. I had asked a couple weeks ago for the city administrator to reach out to the school district and have them give a presentation on the fights that were happening at the school, because I'd had a number of people reach out to me concerned. I since got an email from Steve Barg saying that the school district, I'm going to use the word refused, but I don't remember if that was the actual word they used, but they will not be attending a meeting here at the council to give an update. And so I just wanted to be transparent with the citizens who had asked me to bring this forward as to why this will not be on any agenda moving forward.
Thank you. And for any citizens who are concerned with this matter, you can also contact the school board with your questions. Would that be satisfactory? Item H is reports from commissions, boards, and committees. Any reports tonight? Item I is the consent agenda, which you have before you there. And Mr. Henler, your motion? Okay. and a second by Mr. Varsho. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? Seeing none, please vote.
Yes.
And that motion carries. We don't have any items removed from the consent agenda, so we'll move to item K, which is a first reading of ordinance number 1469, the annexation of land south of the intersection of 1500 and 1502 West McMillan Street and Veterans Parkway Frontage Road, and setting CMU as the rezoning classification, presented by Stephen Wiley, City Planner. Stephen.
Thank you. So as mentioned, this item is a annexation ordinance coming before you. If you recall, this came before the council last month and we had you refer it to Plan Commission. The Plan Commission reviewed this at the meeting last week, at the February 15th Plan Commission meeting, and they recommended approval of this. Just as a recap, this concerns two parcels currently located in the town of McMillan. So they're kind of a town island. And as I mentioned, when we originally brought this to council, it would be nice to clean up that island and annex those into the city. We do have both property owners on board. They filed or signed the petition. So it's a direct annexation in that regard. And we have a developer, Quick Trip, who is interested in acquiring and developing these parcels. The developer is requesting that CMU, community mixed use zoning, be assigned to these parcels once they are annexed in. That zoning would be consistent with the surrounding properties. A lot of those are commercial properties. So such a commercial development like Quick Trip would fit in with the surrounding properties. It would also be consistent with the future land use map recommendation of general commercial. Utilities are available up there, and all they would need is to be connected when development occurs. We, as I mentioned, referred this to the Plan Commission. They reviewed this. We also referred it to the Wisconsin Department of Administration, who has reviewed and found this to be in the public interest. So with that, we are supportive of this. Obviously not recommending any action tonight, but we will be bringing it back at the March 8th meeting for the second reading and action at that point.
Thank you. Item L is a first reading of ordinance number 1470, rezoning property at 1216 North Lincoln Avenue from RH 35, which is rural holding, to SR3, which is single family residential, also presented by Stephen Wiley.
Thank you. So this one is a zone change request. The property owner approached us. Property is pretty large in acreage, a little over 51 acres. Borders West McMillan Street, which runs along the northern edge of the property, and then is located on North Lincoln Avenue on the eastern edge of the property. The town of Lincoln is located to the west, so there's a lot of agricultural properties to the west, and then city of Marshfield residential properties to the east, with some commercial to the northeast. So they approached us because they are interested in potentially subdividing and selling at least a portion of this property for potential redevelopment down the road. So they would be asking us to change the zoning classification from rural holding to single family residential, SR3, to allow smaller lot sizes. Minimum lot size for SR3 properties is 10,000 square feet in area versus the 35 acres that's supposed to be the minimum lot size for a rural holding parcel. Down the road, there'd be potential for development as a single family subdivision. This one too went before the Plan Commission last week, and Plan Commission was largely supportive. We had some discussion about whether utility access would be an issue, or providing utilities, I should say, would be an issue. This project, I should note, would be contingent on the North Lincoln water main project moving forward. I know there's been some discussion about that project, and it is still in the mix for further discussion and consideration. Without the water main project, currently there's no water access out there. I think it's well served, served by a well, I should say. And so that would be an issue for the level of density that the developer might want in a single-family subdivision. So with that, we are recommending approval, not tonight, obviously, but when we bring it back for the second reading.
Yeah, any questions regarding that matter? Moving on to item M, first reading of ordinance number 1471, a general development plan amendment for Prairie Run subdivision to allow changes to previously approved residential land use mix and lot configuration, again presented by Stephen Wiley, City Planner.
Thank you. So this one also came before the Plan Commission last week, and they voted to recommend approval of this. This is for changes to the previously approved land use mix for the Prairie Run subdivision. So you'll know that Prairie Run is north of West McMillan Street, kind of like a peninsula, if you will, that juts out into the town of McMillan. So it's bounded by the town right now, or abutted by the town. Several properties that comprise the Prairie Run subdivision. Originally, this was approved back in 2005. Plan Commission and Common Council reviewed and approved the general development plan for Prairie Run originally back then. Property, when it was annexed into the city in 2006 and designated PUD GDP by ordinance, that served as the interim zoning classification for the properties. An SIP was then later approved in 2006. And then between 2006 and 2012, there were administrative approvals that occurred, minor changes that were approved administratively. In 2012, the specific implementation plan was amended, and that SIP has been in place for several years. In 2014, Wildflower Drive was vacated and went from a through street to a cul-de-sac, and that was approved via variance. And then in 2017, there were some more administrative approvals that occurred. And the last major approval occurred in 2019 with an SIP amendment. If you remember, that was approved for an accessory apartment in the commercial district. And a CUP was approved for that and extended in 2020. Recently, the developer approached staff and, based on market changes, wanted to amend the land use mix and the lot configurations to permit further build out of the subdivision. So we informed the applicant that Plan Commission and Common Council review and approval were necessary in order to do this. In discussing with the applicant, city staff recommended that the original street layout remain. The infrastructure was already completed during the initial phases of the subdivision. And so we don't anticipate any major changes there. The main changes to the land use mix would be that a number of the duplex condos would be altered to single family, and single family condos would be constructed. Some already have been. Some triplex condos originally approved would be converted to duplex in the new land use mix. There'd be a slight increase in commercial square footage, and the overall density would decrease to about 5.1 residential units per acre. There is a single family plat that is part of this, and it's in your packets, that shows 8 single family lots that were previously unplatted. That plat, if approved, would permit further subdivision and build out of those parcels. There's also 2 CSMs that are part of the submission that really focus on subdividing or altering lot layouts, I should say. And those would have to be separately approved through administrative and or Plan Commission and Common Council approvals. In looking at the comprehensive plan, the recommended land use mix would be low, medium, and high density residential, depending on the area of the subdivision. And on the southern part of the subdivision, there's a recommendation for transitional mixed use, I think on the southwest portion of it. And on the southeast portion coming in from West McMillan would be general commercial. Kind of a nice buffer between the busier West McMillan Street and the less intense residential uses to the north in the subdivision. The land use recommendations would remain. They do allow flexibility for the shifts in land use mix that the developer is recommending. So we do not foresee any issues there. What the developer is recommending is still consistent with the land use recommendations. Just really briefly, the architectural and landscaping along with the setbacks, all of that would be examined in the SIP review process. We do not have or have not seen any major changes proposed to those at this point. Stormwater, just to mention briefly, unless Public Works has any concerns, we do not see any issues that would arise with that, as far as we can tell. With lower density, there should be fewer impervious surfaces, so we're supportive of that. I want to mention Parkland dedication would occur with this. There's a little over an acre that is designated in one of the CSMs on the eastern side of the subdivision, and that was reviewed by the Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Committee and the Plan Commission, and both were supportive of that dedication as proposed. The Condo Board and Homeowners Association, the residents, reviewed and approved the GDP changes that are before you here. If this is approved, the next steps would be the SIP review, as I mentioned, and the plat and CSM reviews. With that, again, not recommending any approval tonight, but we will bring this one back too in March.
Mr. Buck, you have a comment?
Thank you. Steve, do we know what the current residents think of this?
So far, I only received one question about whether this would impact existing properties. And other than that, we have not received any concerns, or at least I have not. According to the developer, they are on board. They did review and approve these changes at their meetings. Yep.
Any other comments or questions for Steve? Thank you.
Thanks.
Item N is a request to direct appropriate city staff to continue working with staff from Wood County to develop parameters for an agreement for a shared city-county site presented by Dan Knack, Director of Public Works. Dan.
Thank you. You'll recall in January that the Common Council and members of the Wood County Highway Committee and Wood County Board heard a presentation from Norman Barrientos on his study regarding a possible shared site between the City of Marshfield Public Works Department and the Wood County Highway Department on a current Wood County owned parcel on South Galvin Avenue. That 17.89 acre parcel is currently a satellite shop for the Wood County Highway Department. Both the city and the county are looking to make improvements or planning for improvements to their facilities. And we have a common interest of looking at sharing resources, minimizing any duplication of costs and services, and then improving any efficiencies of services where we can share resources. My impression was that report was well received by both agencies. However, no action was taken at that meeting in January, and so the next step is for the council to give staff some direction on where we go from here. The Barrientos report did provide some recommended next steps, which included selecting a preferred option, further development of building plans and site improvements, phasing alternatives, really trying to narrow down cost estimates and so forth. And while those steps will be needed eventually, I think it's also important for the city and county to discuss at a higher level how we would function on that site, how we would operate, how we would share costs, how not only construction but ongoing operations would be shared, how the value of the land could be established, and what would the city's contribution toward land be, as well as how the project could be funded. And all those kinds of discussions would lead to a framework for an agreement between the city and the county that would eventually allow for the shared site project to move forward. So staff recommends that the council would direct us to continue working with Wood County to lay out these parameters that would need to be addressed in an agreement. We do see value in eventually working with a joint committee of city and county officials, likely 2 council members, 2 Wood County Highway Committee members, and staff from each agency to work out the details of this agreement on kind of a shared approach, and ultimately with the common goal of developing a formal agreement for a shared site that would allow us to move forward. So tonight, I'm simply asking for your direction to continue working with county staff to develop the parameters for an agreement of a shared site. And when the time is right, we'd ask for look for some volunteers to be part of a committee with Wood County Highway Department, or Wood County Highway Committee members to further refine that agreement. With that, I'd take any questions tonight.
We have a motion from Mr. Woods.
Move to direct staff to continue work with Wood County on this.
Okay, and second from Mr. Hendler. Any questions for Dan or any comments on the motion?
Thank you. Dan, this is a win-win situation for the city and the county. And strongly urge that we approach this rationally and wisely when it comes to financial. So I think that it's just an excellent idea. Whoever came up with it, I think hit it right on the nail. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? The motion is to direct staff to continue working with Wood County staff. There's no more questions, please vote.
Yes.
Mr. Hendler. Thank you, and that motion is carried.
Thank you.
A lot of reading here now. Item O, to adjourn into closed session under Wisconsin statutes, chapter 19.85, paragraph 1G, conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved, specifically the update on MCHS Incorporated's tax refund claim, and to adjourn to closed session under Wisconsin statutes, chapter 19.85, paragraph 1F, considering financial, medical, social, or personal histories or disciplinary data of specific persons, preliminary consideration of specific personnel problems, or the investigation of charges against specific persons, except where paragraph B applies, which, if discussed in public, would likely to have a substantial adverse effect upon the reputation of any person referred to in such histories or data, or involved in such problems or investigations. And 19.85, paragraph 1G, conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved, specifically a review of the municipal court record, procedure, and protocol for the collection and allocation of forfeiture. Mr. Witzel, your motion.
Move to adjourn to closed session.
And we have a second from Mr. Fisher. Please vote.
Yes.
And that motion carries. We are in closed session.